Rosalyn Masterson, the author of The Storm is Over, is here with us again to share her experience with the earthly angels that God put into her life to help her make the long journey back from the storm. Rosalyn calls this chapter The Long Journey Back. Rosalyn, we are so grateful you are here with us today. Rosalyn, you survived the horrible attack on your life, which was the beginning of you finding your way out of your own self-destruction. It took you 2 years to finally surrender your old life and begin a new life where drugs and alcohol were no longer present. Tell us a little bit about what happened in those 2 years after your attack before you surrender.
Well, good morning to you too, Sheila. Wow, before the surrender, what had happened after the attack, shortly after that, that happened to me in September. I relapsed in October, sworn that I would never use again, but less than 30 days I was off to the races again. In November, my son, he killed himself. He shot himself, playing Russian roulette. So there it goes, the mindset, the mind is a terrible thing, but it can also be so daunting. It can just tell you, that you're not worth nothing. And when I look, the flashes that I get, and when I look back during that time, what was going on with me, it was the guilt, it was the fear, it was the shame. What now? Here I am, I wasn't even worthy of being a darn mother, because my only boy, 18 years I had with that boy, and all he wanted was a sober mother. And so, I just continued because I could not see no way out. I had nobody but the drugs and the alcohol and just the lifestyle. Nobody gave a darn about Rosalyn, nobody. And so that's what was going on. And, just falling deeper and deeper in holes. Not so much debt, because you ain't got debt. So how can you be in debt if you ain't got nothing, right? And so, but just the despair, the isolation, the loneliness, just the fear. Dang, these drugs, this alcohol, just the life. The people the sordid places, the people I associated myself with. Yuck, But it lasted 2 years. It lasted. No support, nobody. No family, nobody.
One night you hitched a ride back to Denver with a guy you had never met before. He was pulled over and sent to jail on a DUI. By the grace of God, you were not sent to jail, but instead sent to a place called Denver Cares. This was the start to a new life. You met a nurse there and begged for her to help you.
Wow. I remember that night as if it was last night. Because it was the weekend, and again, I gotten broke again, and after using all of my money on drugs and so forth and alcohol, I got in the car with this guy coming from another part of town, and he had brought us, we was driving, and then we stopped over on Colfax where the police stopped him, and because of his warrants and him driving, they arrested him. Me, I don't know why. They know me, even though I'm not a very known criminal, but DPS, Denver Police Department, knows Rosalyn. And so, they couldn't arrest me because I came back a code 4. And if you are in the criminal system, that means nothing. And, I didn't have no warrants or nothing. But instead, what they did, they took me to Denver Cares. Denver Cares is a detox facility. It used to be where you go in Denver Cares and they let you dry out for 72 hours. But this time, they go in Denver Cares, they check your vitals, and then if you're good to go, they let you go. Something happened, and I guess I would have to take it to the policeman that took me to Denver Cares. But this woman, I went in Denver Cares, I had liquor on me, I had cigarettes that I had stolen from the 7-Eleven, not even my brand. That's when they used to have them on the counter, But this woman, she just took this, it was something about me that attracted her to me. But she was like the PM nurse. You know, they have an AM nurse and they do a PM nurse. And these people watches and monitors your vitals, especially when you blowing zeros and double zeros, you know, being so intoxicated. But I was talking with this lady, and I had told this lady, you know, because she was telling me, which I already knew how the laws change, but she had told me that I would have to leave. And I had told this lady, if I get out of here, I'm going to die. Please don't let me die. Because she was I had nowhere to go. Denver Cares was like the very beginning of this long journey. Because the first time ever someone listened. So I honestly spoke from the heart, and someone heard my cry or my plea. So that's where that was. And so I was able to stay in Denver Cares like 6 days. She got me a bed over to this Christian-based program. And from there, you know, the rest is history. But I will never, ever forget that woman that made sure that I did not leave Denver Cares, that I went to treatment.
So from Denver Cares, she sent you over to the Salvation Army. And when you arrived at the Salvation Army, you found out that it was a faith-based program. Is this where you finally surrendered?
The Salvation Army is where I felt that I was in a mansion, you know. This is where I had surrendered. And what I mean by the mansion in the sky, because it was just this peace that overtook me. Something had happened to me, you know, and then I was receiving the help. So of course, you know, you had to do stuff to be there, but yes, this is where I had totally surrendered, and I was willing to do whatever. Even find this relationship with God.
At the Salvation Army, you meet a woman who you call your big sister. Her name was Rose. How was Rose an instrumental part of your life during the time at the Salvation Army?
When you first go, they assign you a person kind of like your guide. Well, Rose was my guide. And, you know, not only that, you know, like we had stuff in common. She was on her way graduating the program, but she kind of was explaining the rules and the guidelines and showing me around and telling me the do's and the do's not. But again, this is the second person that actually took the time out to help me, you know, answering the questions and whatever it was that I need, because I didn't need much, but it was just the hearing and the listening to me and the sharing what was going on with me, with Rose. So yes, she was my big sister.
You went to 12-step meetings regularly when attending the Salvation Army. Why were these meetings so helpful for you?
Well, for starters, Sheila, you know, this would be my second time, because when I was in Centercore, I did that also with the transition. But the difference with the meetings through Centercore and the meetings now through the Salvation Army, it was that, you know, it was accountability, and it was not me going by myself. Because, see, Rose was with me at those meetings until she had graduated. And then it was people that was coming to pick us up. But I just wanted this deal now. I wanted to live right. I wanted to do right. So it was not about manipulation or just hanging out because I had a roof, 3 hots and a cot, but it was more about this change, because this magical door opened supernaturally. It just opened for me.
Tell us the story about the woman who stopped her car while driving away from the 12-step meeting and gave you the book called God's Calling.
Oh, girl, you're not going to believe this. Like, you know, we had already discussed me liking these meetings. You know, get so excited. But this meeting, at the end of this meeting, we were all outside and we were getting ready to go our separate ways. And all of a sudden, this woman pulls up and she hands me this book. She said, "Here, this is for you. Never, ever put eyes on this person." Who does that? I mean, where did she come from? She was not in the meeting. But she goes and she gives me this book. And it's called God's Calling. It's been over 23 years ago. And I have that very book today. So again, earthly angel. Wow.
While at the Salvation Army, while heading to a work release, you realized it was your late son, Coco's 20th birthday. When you arrived at work, you completely broke down emotionally. You asked for help, and a man by the name of Black Diamond came to your aid. How did Black Diamond support you during this moment?
Wow, this is kind of tough one, all that whole morning, waking up 20th birthday for my son and just seeing these signs, and it was just like stuff that out of the ordinary. So we get to the warehouse, and I just absolutely, something just overwhelmed, something just came over me, and I just absolutely just broke out emotionally crying and stuff uncontrollably. I'm not knowing what was going on, so I just absolutely refused to do anything until I talked to Black Diamond, which he was I guess he was the first spiritual person I had met at that program. And he was such a tall giant, But I had the utmost respect for this guy because he was gentle and he talked to me. But when I explained what was happening to me, he allowed me to go to the chapel. He allowed me time. He allowed me to grieve. And this is the first time ever someone had told me that I was grieving the loss of my son. That's what all of that stuff was coming up. It wasn't about relapsing or wanting to leave the program. It was about on Marcus's birthday. That was on the 10th of September in 98 is when this thing hit me. So it was not about drinking or drugging or running, because I've been running for the last 2 years, till I ran into the Sally, So this is what that was. So I understood that because I was alone with God in the chapel, and I could cry and I could talk and I could speak.
The Salvation Army required you to go to church services. Here you meet two people, Ra and Jewel. Why were they instrumental in you meeting God in a way you had never imagined?
Well, for starters, at the time he was the captain of Salvation Army. He was the major, and it was his wife. And it was just like, I don't know, but these angels, they just appearing. These so kind, sweet people, And this lady, Jules, she had told me, about a scripture, and I had never heard this scripture before. And still today, I remember the first time I had ever heard it was Jeremiah 29:11. But the Lord says, the thoughts that I have for you is for a future, to give you a future and an expected end. But the way that this woman, and then we could sing those songs, and I get so excited, and then it's just this feeling. But this lady and her husband, they really received me, because they say people see in you what you can't see, so they had seen stuff in me, but them loving on me. Because, being who I am and never had this type of interaction with people, real, genuine people. Little did I know they was earth angels, but they were. So, yes, they was just sent from God to help and to soothe and comfort me, to guide me in the direction which he was pulling me in.
What type of God did they introduce you to?
Love. God, for starters, God don't have a face, okay? God is the spirit. It's a spirit. But it was the spirit of love, compassion, empathy. It wasn't about no self-pity. It wasn't about feeling sorry for me. It wasn't about controlling me. It was about arms wide open like my grandfather. My big daddy, just loving and embracing me and holding me. So that's the type of love. That's what I'm talking about. These people loved on me.
You had a case manager from the Salvation Army named Amethyst. In your book, you say that she was the first person you ever trusted. What did Amethyst do for you that built such a strong bond of trust between you and her?
Well, started is that I would meet with this lady, and then we would sit and we would talk, and then we were talking about what was going on with me. And before we go further, she's the first woman minister I've ever encountered. But she said, "Tell me something. One thing that blocks our recovery in this journey is when we hold on to old hurts and old pains or stuff that we are ashamed of. Tell me one thing that you've done that you were so ashamed of." And do you know I did not hesitate? I told this woman this, and she just said, "You know what? It's okay because it's no longer a secret." She said, "Now you're just free to heal, because you are forgiven." And I could not, to hear that coming out of that wonderful, beautiful mouth of that lady, I could not believe it. Because it was something that, it was part of me running because of the ugliness of the stuff that I had did.
Garnett is another woman who you call an earth angel. What did she do for you that helped you manage all the anger you had built up from the years?
You know, when we have pent up anger, when we have stuff that we just hold on to, and then you are put in these positions where they come to you and they talk to you. But I was part of this group, these people would come out to Salvation Army and we would do group, and one of them was anger management. And so she just kind of expressed and explained to me what anger management does and how it is also a stress. But she also told me that I had a free space to let it out and to let go. And part of that letting out and letting go was journaling, writing about stuff, just writing about it and talking openly about it. What was the things? Because when you hold it in, it has the power where you would go backwards instead of forward.
You graduated from the Salvation Army in the winter of 1998. What were the important skills you learned from here that helped you to never look back when you left?
Well, I learned that I was a beautiful person and that God loved me. The skills was when I needed to talk and share, that I just needed to go to 12-step meetings and do that. Even in counseling services, I needed to do that. But the most important skill that I learned is that I'm okay, things happen. People do stuff. But in order to keep moving forward, I have to always remember where I was, where my disease of addiction took me to, and without God, where I could easily return. So yes, I have the skills.
From the Salvation Army, you had to move back in with your brother, Captain. Was this difficult for you?
Yes. And the reason it being difficult, I'm changing, but I was also full of fear. But I also wanted to be near my daughter, where my brother continued to smoke pot, he continued to smoke crack, he had booze and alcohol, but then he was also so darn controlling, even with me and with my daughter. And so just to sit there and watch the way that he would talk to her and how he would just handle her. Not in the sense that he would spank her or whoop her or anything, but just the language, because words stick. Scars heal, And so it was just that eggshells around him, because I didn't want to go to no shelter, which I could have went to a shelter, but I wanted to be close to Peaches.
Part of your aftercare plan was to go to a place called the Stout Street Foundation. Here you meet a woman you call Short Stuff. How did Short Stuff help you out?
Wow. South Street Stout Street Clinic was where I received free mental health services. I also was able to have these counseling services, and also here, Short Stuff, the lady that we're talking about, she was my case manager. And then we would have sessions, and she kind of helped me get back with the budgeting, with housing. She did the paperwork, and even with opening up me an account, a banking account, because I was on SSI due to my injuries, PTSD as they would call it. And so it was just a wealth of services that I utilized. So yes, short stuff helped me. Oh, wow. Well, when I get upset with Captain, I would run to her office. And then the good news, some days when she didn't have appointments, I could just go in there and boo-hoo and cry because it was real stuff. I think it was more fear than anything because I would always remember people, when I was used and how people would try to get me to use and stuff. And these people all of a sudden showing up nowhere. So yes, she was very instrumental. She helped me keep it together. So she is part of this mosaic, just these angels, all these darn women, angels.
As time moves on, you begin working towards becoming a certified addiction counselor through vocational rehabilitation services. What was this process like for you?
Wow, when you talk about amends, it's a thing called amends, but Voc Rehab was very instrumental with me over in Center Court. That's my first encounter with Voc Rehab. Matter of fact, they the one that was instrumental in my housing to move from Denver to Lakewood, and also with me getting a job. And so in order to prove myself, because I had relapsed, in order to prove myself, I had to do level 2 drug and alcohol education, and I had to continue with counseling sessions. So yes, Voc Rehab, and then with the classes that I was taking, could you imagine somebody 18 months sober having to do a level 2 drug and alcohol education? Can you imagine me still have to UA and ain't had touched to nothing? But this is what I had to do in order to receive the service. And you know what? I did.
You were very busy with your studies, your drug and alcohol classes, and your therapeutic treatments. An older woman named Esther, who lived next door from Captain's, was very helpful to you. What do you remember about Esther?
Wow, Miss Esther, that lady, she was just like, she was a church-going woman. She was a God-fearing woman. And, she was the neighbor. And she just befriended me, and I know that I could talk to her about everything. But you know what, that one thing that lady would tell me? She would always tell me to hold on, to hang in there. Because she knew, even though my brother she can only imagine what was going on over there. But if I was late getting Peaches from the bus, he'd have something to talk about. But she would help me, especially when I'm doing my classes or if I'm over at Stout Street, because that's a long ways from where we live. She would make sure that Peaches got off the bus. So pretty much she was my help when I was not there. And so yes, so right today, still today, I just remember that old sweet lady just telling me to hang in there and it's going to get better. And also she would tell me about the rewards at the end, that me and my daughter will be together. She also took my daughter to church and me to church too. So I would accompany her several times to church. She was part of me going back to church too.
You gained a mentor named Carolyn from the Choosing Life Center while taking drug and alcohol classes. She was like a mother to you. Why?
Because she was an older lady, and just like she was just so interested in my life and what was going on. And again, she treated me as if I was her daughter, and I just could not believe that, because I've never had these type of emotions or feelings show up with kindness from a woman that cared that much about me. She literally cared about me. So yes, so Carolyn, she was my friend. She was my mother. And then, when I had to go over there to her agency, to do my UAs, it was just the way that we greeted. And then I was not, and she would always tell me that God loves me, and she would tell me first things first. And it was just the stuff that we would, embrace one another. But yes, she was a darling. She was a sweetheart.
Carolyn had an ex-husband named Brad who heard about your life story. He was the founder of the Stout Street Foundation. He took a chance on you. What kind of chance?
Well, at this time, I was in school studying to get a degree in human services with the emphasis of substance abuse and mental health. And I was doing practicums at this time. And so I wandered up. Carolyn suggested that I talk to her ex-husband, Bradley, about doing classes or doing hours over at the Stout Street Foundation. And so, of course, after God meeting me, and it was just the encounters, and then me coming from Centercore, and his program was kind of like Centercore, but it wasn't as strict. To me, that just the way that they did stuff was different. But he sided with me as far as his staff was concerned because, it was just that I brought a different twist with the deal because I felt, it's not so much as being hard, but when you're dealing with an addict, when you're dealing with people that is selfish and stubborn like that, kissing them on the hand or patting them on the back is not going to get it. You got to let them see what was going on. And that reminded him, I would imagine, 30 years prior when he first opened the Stout Street Foundation, that's the kind of treatment he had. Because I think his program was born out of California, or where he learned it, and he brought it to Denver. But it was about the tough love, but in a sense that help you be accountable for your actions.
Violet was the next angel who came into your life. She was a huge rock that helped you and your daughter heal and build a relationship. What did she do that ended up being so valuable for you and your daughter?
See, again, here go Voc Rehab, because she was the one. Voc Rehab referred me to this woman. She was a psychiatrist. Honestly, she was a psychiatrist, and she was me and my daughter's therapist. So we were doing family therapy, and then she was just telling me, because we would sit there, the three of us, and she also was teaching me when Peaches wanted to hug me, to allow her to hug me, because I didn't know how to receive that. And she was telling me that what is done in the past is the past. So what was happening is that pretty much she showed me and taught me how to be sensitive and very gentle, and to receive and to allow Peaches to be the young girl that she was, because at this time she was 12 years old. And so, yes. So, and then she had a voice. So I didn't have to be so controlling or so demanding and it had to be one-sided because I'm the mama and you the kid. No, that only shuts them down. And so Violet was very instrumental in teaching me parenting skills to a woman that was fearful.
The last two earth angels you give gratitude to in your book are Salt and Pepper. Please tell us about these two amazing women.
My first encounter with Salt and Pepper was when I was in Centercore. I had these encounters, like I said, I had to do 12-step programs. And I would leave, and then they would kind of help me get back to Lakewood. But I met these people, and even after I had relapsed, those people were on my side. They were the one that supported me. They showed up at Marcus's services and stuff. But also, Salt, when I had got up the courage to ask her just to work with me and to guide me through this program, I just had to prove that I was serious. Because of the first time, when I first met these people, I guess I was just playing the game, doing it so I can, have something to say to Centercore. But this time when I got there in 98, I was for real. And so today, this woman, they are both very instrumental in my life, because they are my two sober buddies. These are two women, they're pillars. They just really helped me, and they loved on me, and they walked me through this process of living life one day at a time.
Rosalyn, God provided you with so many miracles on your long journey back from the storm. Tell us how you are giving back now after all has been given to you.
Well, for every opportunity and every time that I have the opportunity to share, I see young people, my passion is to help people, and it's not just young, it's young and old, but it's just this thing that I have about caring for people and learning and letting them know that life is not as bad as it seems. Letting them know that there's a God and it's not the punishing fire and brimstone God, but it's a God that is all powerful and all loving, and He resides on the inside of each and every one of us. And how He provided those angels for me, because God shows up in forms of people. He uses people to get our attention. And so I know for somebody like me, if He can do it for me, and I believe that my gift, what I'm supposed to do is what I'm doing, is I have to continue to pass it on. Because it was so freely given to me. Freely give, freely receive, freely give. And so the deal about the compassion and loving on people, and not, tearing people down, so as to build people up and not tear them down. And so, yes, being an addiction counselor, and right now I'm waiting on my license, because I let them expire. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, if I had to do it all again, I would never let that happen. But just what I'm waiting on, and I'm going back into that field, because my field is helping people. And it is about speaking life to so many of the losses out here right now. Because this world it's the people. They have nowhere to go. But I want to be that angel that started at Denver Cares. I want to be that big sister at a treatment center. I want to be that lady at a clinic that helps me write a check, make a grocery list, shop. I want to be the one that says, yes, we can, advocate to get you housing. Yes, we can go to voc rehab. What are your skills? I want to be what was so easily ministered and shown to me. This is what I want to do to the people that is coming after me, because they're coming. They're coming, because I know the world is full of it, and the world needs more people like Rosalyn. And I'm not talking about people that have been in school all their life. And I'm not talking about people that want to exploit and use people. I'm talking about people that actually care for people. And not for a paycheck, but to actually care for them.
Rosalyn, thank you so much again. We're so grateful you came over here today with us to talk about your long journey back. So many amazing earth angels God put in your life to get you here today, 23 years ago. Next week, we will definitely be looking forward to you reading your last chapter called Reflections to us. Thank you again, Roz.
Thank you, Sheila. See you next week.